Batista City Council to order. If everyone rise and pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Right.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Bosch.
Here.
Vice Mayor Moore.
Here.
Councilmember Ed.
Here.
Councilmember Cosio. Here. Councilmember Lund.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Public comments for items not on the agenda. You have any speaker cards?
I have no speaker card.
Okay. Moving on, presentations, informational items, and reports. Item 3A is, is there anything? Any presentations? Presentations? Okay, moving on, monthly financial statement, treasurer's report.
I had some questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Unusual for me. On the list of warrants, there's 3 bills from PG&E, and I don't have my glasses, but I think I circled 3 from Payvex or 2 from Payvex.
There's 2 paybacks.
Why? This is all for the month of May. Why don't these bills come all in one? Why are they broken down? Are they different things?
Yeah, I think what it is this is a combination of not only May, but some of June also, that were in June 15th that we wanted to get into our last budget, so that we can look at the expenditures through the thing. But the Payvex, I think it was May and June.
Do we make one payment to them for current work and one for the bill we owe them?
Every month it's $7,731.
Okay.
So that goes into the entire...
That's a payment.
That payment,
Yeah.
There are other Payvex, but most of them are Grand Rock, so we bought asphalt and base rock.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So anything less than $7,700 would be something that we bought asphalt and oil and base rock.
Okay.
I didn't recognize you, Chuck.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I recognize you, but I did.
Yo, okay. Came in the back. Was there any other questions on the warrants?
And then I just wanted to call your attention to is the warrants Bracewell on the second page is unusually high. And I just wanted to, I had a deep conversation with him. That has a lot of the supplemental environmental project costs in that he's doing at the sewer treatment plant for the
line that
chlorine
we're running.
analyzer and stuff for the reclamation project.
Okay. Yeah.
And we document that and put it in because one of the stipulations of the regional board was that we have to give them an accounting of all their expenditures, and it has to exceed the cost of the total fine. Otherwise, they're going to get...
Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions on the warrant?
No,
I can't believe you don't have.
No, so Bracewell separates it out for you.
I told him, I says, his normal monthly balance and everything over and above that, anything he does, he puts it down as a special item.
So that it's not too hard for us to...
Document.
No, Tony, I actually don't.
All right. Any
Just-
other questions?
Just one minute. On security, 612002.
You're on the
On
what
for-
department?
Oh, that's
Sheet are you
budget
on?
versus actual department. So I'll wait on that one there.
What
But
department
on
is it?
security, there was a
What's that?
general fund,
General fund, okay.
13,350, or 1,350, and we kind of budgeted 367 for that. What does that one cover? What's the security?
1,300.
1350. What's
Oh,
that?
yeah. When you tell me.
No, yeah, 612002.
Huh?
612002.
No.
Right there.
Is this a budget?
Huh?
Is this a budget?
On the, yeah, it is versus, okay, budget.
City
No.
manager.
Yeah, 'cause
We'll go back to
Sorry to
treasurer,
interrupt, but
sorry.
can you put your microphone on, please?
That question was on the budget, wasn't it? It's not on the
Yeah.
warrants?
Yeah.
It's on the budget, not on
Okay.
the warrant. Sorry about that, I
Let's
got ahead
go
of
through
myself on
the
that one.
financial report, and then we'll get to the budget.
I couldn't figure out the number you were giving for the warrant. It didn't seem to.
Okay.
Anyway,
Sorry about
good.
that, I was getting ahead on that.
Okay, well, good evening, council, and mayor, everybody, San Juan. This is the 11th month on our yearly budget cycle, and just a couple comments about it. Our general fund, the change in the fund balance was a positive $110,000 as compared to a positive change in fund balance of $350,000 this time last year. But I'm sure the city manager explained there's been a lot of expenses that have been going on and improvements in the community that kind of, but we're still in a positive, which is very good, $110,000.
Later on.
Our enterprise funds to date are at a very small loss. It's about $1,000 under what was budgeted, but this is really pretty good. When you look at last year, we were at this time we were at a loss of $80,000 on the enterprise funds. So $1,000 is not much. So I think we're right on target with our enterprise funds. Overall, our cash flow, removing the accruals and the depreciation, was a positive $459,000 for the year to this date. This positive cash flow includes the total COP payments of $760,000. So we made our second payment in the cycle. So until the next cycle begins, we paid off our COP. This is great news. City's operating in the black, and our city revenue sources are covering our operating cost and debt service, which is excellent news for us. Our cash balances on hand, net the restricted cash for our COP debt services of, as I said before, $760,000. Is a little over $2 million. Actually, it's $2,014,000. So our cash balance is solid. The City Council, just a couple notes here. The City Council has met twice in the last month to determine its priorities in developing our 2013 and 14 city financial budgets. I have to say I was very impressed. I think we have a very solid budget for the 2013-2014 that's coming before you. From what I can see. Let's see, having participated in these financial meetings, I believe the City Council, along with the city staff members, have developed a very workable budget for the 2013-2014 business cycle. And that's my report.
Chuck, one thing on when you cash balance,
Yes.
you had a debt service of, this shows $791,000. Is that,
No,
has it gone up?
this is our total reserves we're talking about.
And that, the 791 is the total.
Oh, okay, that's not the payment, that's...
It's
No.
the payment
Oh,
of
That's the
both
total.
principal
Okay.
and interest next
Right.
year.
Okay.
It comes in 2 different installments.
Okay,
So
thank
it's
you.
not something we had to pay all at once. It comes in 2 different installments.
Oh, is that, I didn't realize that's how it's separated out. One of
Yeah.
those is principal and one of those is interest.
Interest, yeah. And it's divided in half, and some of them come in early, and then some of them come in late. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions on the
Any
report?
questions? Anybody?
Okay.
We're doing really good. I think it's great.
Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Okay,
Item
Robert had a question on the,
No, when we get to the budget,
Yeah, we'll get,
oh, okay.
which is later in the agenda. 3B, library report. Any questions or comments? Linda, yell at me when you got a speaker's card because I keep forgetting to ask you.
To put, for the speaker cards, I will. Right now, I only have some for item 5.
Okay. Item 3C, fire report.
I'll give that to Mr. Fox. City of San Juan Bautista total calls was 6. San Benito calls was 9. Hollister City total calls, we had 1 for mutual aid. It was rather a slow month, 28 calls. All city equipment is in service, and we're up to 30 volunteers.
You went all the way to Hollister for medical aid?
Yes.
Okay.
It was one of those where a lot was happening everywhere.
3D, sheriff's report. I had it, I don't know what I did with it. The sheriff, no, he's not here. Any questions on the sheriff's report, or did anybody get one?
Well, I don't think we have one in here.
Is there a chance he may show up? Or?
You heard anything about whether he's going to?
No, I haven't heard from Rich Brown.
Okay.
Oh. Tony, I have some comments on the neighborhood watch, if this is a good point for that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, last night there was a neighborhood watch meeting, and I was the only council person there last night. But one of the things that we discussed, and I guess they've been discussing in the past that I wasn't aware of, because I go when I can, but it's not every month. Many, I would say most of the people who've been attending the neighborhood watch meetings would like to start having the neighborhood watch meetings here, which I think is a good thing for the city. They don't feel that Rich Brown needs to attend them, and frankly, neither do I. I think that there are better uses of our deputy's time than to attend every neighborhood watch meeting. Not that he would never attend again, but that he wouldn't need to attend every month if we don't have it in his office. So they'd like to have it here, and I cleared it with Trish that next, the neighborhood watch meetings are on the third Monday of the month. City Council's on the third Tuesday, neighborhood watch is on the third Monday. I believe you said that was July 15th, Trish? I didn't look at the calendar.
Probably, yeah. That would be a Monday.
A Monday? Yeah, I think it's July 15th. We would have the neighborhood watch meeting here rather than at Rich Brown's office. And there's been a lot of people attending because there's been a lot of break-ins. Not robberies, they're not people crimes, they're property crimes. Breaking into houses, breaking into cars. Roger notified me of one today, breaking into Windmill Market. So there's been a lot of that type action. It's not like Selena's gang activity where somebody gets shot, but it upsets people, and I would be upset too if it was my stuff being stolen. So one of the neighborhood watch gals printed up a bunch of these. She didn't want to pay $1.50 for each sticker, so she printed some herself. So these are now available if anybody wants to put them in their window. And I would really like to see one council person attend every meeting. I'm not volunteering to be that person every month, but I will do it this month. Rotate council people so that we have a council person there, since the sheriff probably won't be attending. And then we could have different guest speakers, maybe members of the public if they have something they really want to say, or gang task force person, or if we could possibly get Darren Thompson to come once, that sort of thing. So how does the council feel about conducting the neighborhood watch meetings here and having at least one council person there on a rotating basis? 1 to 2, because you really don't want more than that.
Meetings here is fine. I won't commit to attending the meetings, though.
Yeah. Seems like a good idea to me, rather than...
And you go, so I have at least one rotation.
No, I'll attend one, and I just want to chime in. I believe that I agree with you. They should be centrally located here at the city, and I think that the council ought to take and think about turning that room back to the school. I think it's leading to difficult. I see that sheriff car there all the time, and I can go further, and I think that it's It's not benefiting us, you know. And I'm glad that you brought that up. I think those neighborhood watch meetings ought to be here, and I personally would like to give that classroom back to the school district for the kids. I think it's led to some problems, and I can go in further, but I'll just leave it at that.
Do we rent that?
No, it's free.
It's free. The school does
it's
provide
okay.
it.
Okay.
And I do want to say, too, this would not involve staff time. I think there's enough of us now with keys and access. We should all have it. I don't know if everybody's signed up for a key. Well, just come in and get it. Trish will take care of you. In one of our meetings, we agreed that everyone should have a key
Okay.
and a code to get in. So we shouldn't have to bother the staff to have somebody here for those meetings.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a speaker card for this item.
Okay.
Hi,
Wanda?
Van de Guibert, 5 Donner Street. On the day of the rib cook-off, one of my neighbors in Creekbridge was burglarized. They had come into town to get some ribs and got home, and somebody had gotten into the house and taken their laptop and some other things. Apparently, the criminal, Rob or whatever, was caught. And from what I understand from another neighbor, he wasn't arrested. Do you know if that's true, Roger?
I don't know.
I wish Rich were here to answer that. I don't know if he was a young person, if he was underage, or I just think that the person needs to be held accountable and responsible for his actions.
Yeah. Thank you.
And there was one other thing, too, that a lot of people at Neighborhood Watch would like to see, and that's a link on the city website to know what the activities are in the area. The incident reports, I guess you'd say. And I believe, Tricia, are you going to work on that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anything else on the sheriff's report? Comments?
I think the mayor and the vice mayor and I met with Darren Thompson about a month and a half ago, and he had shown us some reports where he has printouts of activities as it relates to the city of San Juan Bautista, and he made it available to us if we wanted to, where he could email us over, and so maybe we should respond to him, and then that could be emailed to Trish, and then we could distribute it.
Yeah, several people said it used to be posted at the post office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That month, I guess a monthly report, sort of.
Yeah.
Right, they used to do it, and at least that way people were aware. There wasn't anything in the paper, or you couldn't identify it, that things were going on, and I don't know whatever happened to that, but...
Yeah. Because if it's not in your neighborhood, you usually don't know something happened around town.
So, okay, anything else on the sheriff? All right, moving on, 3E, Public Works Report. Roger?
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I grouped all of my reports together on one page there, but just to let you know, the Public Works Department, they're performing outstandingly, and they've done a lot of work around the firehouse here, as well as their routine maintenance of the buildings. The work on the 3rd Street reclamation line is begun. It commenced, and they finished the undergrounding portion. Tomorrow we'll be testing the pipe, and so then that length will be completed. The next phase would be the swing elbow assembly, and we went out to bid, and we did not receive any bids, but I've asked 3 or 4 contractors to submit us bids, and so we're going to commence on that, and then that would be the final phase. Chris and Lloyd Bracewell are working at the sewer treatment plant to complete the headworks of it, the pump filters and the chlorination analyzers and the diet study. And so everything is coming together. Again, our deadlines and milestones is by September we should have the thing finished and online and ready to go.
When you said you were going to test the lines, are you going to use reclaimed water? Or?
No, the test for the line is we put an air test on it to make sure that it meets the air tightness, and then we relieve the pressure, and then it's all set for receiving effluent.
Because I want to fill my tank. And test my lines up there.
Code enforcement, at 207, the owner had the responsibility of putting a sidewalk in and a handrail along the porch. We advised them, and then they commenced and set up the forms. The work was done, but it does not meet city standards. I advised the owner. I went out and told them that if they can't fix it, then it's got to be removed and redone.
The sidewalk or the rail?
The sidewalk. It was done, it was scored improperly, and the surface was not smooth broom finish, and it was an abominable job. So. No improvement on the Pierce corner of Pierce and the Alameda, and we'll discuss that. Conditions have really not changed. I've taken photos of it.
That's the same as the 205 Alameda that we've previously discussed?
Yes, Ken.
We've notified the owner and everybody, how many? Several times.
Several times, yes.
Maybe we
We've
should
been doing this
proceed.
6 months.
If the council wants me, we can proceed with Matt on board. We can proceed with the abatement action.
I mean, I don't know how many letters he's been sent. But
Yeah.
We'll gear that up and send it out, and then we'll keep you abreast of it.
Hey, you've notified him specifically, like Rick suggested at one of the
6
meetings.
months it's been going on.
Well, yeah, but at the last one, I think Rick suggested that we notify him specifically of exactly what the problems are, and he hasn't responded to those issues.
None. Planners report, the sign ordinance. The Planning Commission has worked diligently on the last several months, almost maybe over a year, to redo the sign ordinance, and they've come up with a draft and very comprehensive. They are contacting citizens groups, downtown organizations, and we're initiating a public participation portion of a review, and they will hold those. And then upon the conclusion of that, they'll go through the process and then they'll bring it back with a recommendation to the City Council. The brewery project, the environmental mitigation measures are in circulation, and it's being circulated, and we will hold, comments will be in by June the 27th, and we'll be holding a public hearing July the 2nd. Once this is accomplished, they make the necessary findings for the CEQA guideline, then they can get into the necessary approvals and mitigation measures and conditions of approval. And barring the normal procedures, it could be approved within the next couple of months. I'm pleased to announce that we have our new assistant planner on board, Matt. He's in the audience. Come in and stand there. He's been baptized under fire over the last couple of days, and he's been a God-saver to us and doing an excellent job. And his resume is in the packet for you to review and everything, and a graduate of Cal Poly and with a degree in urban planning. And so, Matt, if you want to say something, that's be okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Grew up in Hollister. I'm a hay baler. I went to Gavilan College, and like Roger said, graduated from Cal Poly 2009. I was able to go up to North Dakota with my fiance. She was coaching softball, and I was working in planning up there for 2 years, working on a land use plan, actually 2 of them. And then for the last 2 years, I was over in Santa Cruz working for the Regional Transportation Commission as a planning technician, and there I kind of worked on a vast number of things. And kind of during that time, I was working here very part-time, basically every other Friday, helping Roger out with the housing element, which is just near ready to go to the state review. But yeah, I'm very excited to be here and be seeing you all more often. Thank you.
Welcome.
Great.
Welcome.
Welcome aboard. Is going to have the housing element done in next week or so?
The draft is done, and I reviewed it and everything, and then we're firing it off to the state for their concurrence, and then it'll be back in front of you as soon as we get the blessing from the HCD.
Great. Okay. Any comments on Roger's report?
And in the city manager report, I just kind of recovered the reclaim and reclamation, the supplemental environmental project, and NorCal is doing it. And just to let you know, the component of putting the irrigation line in at the Abbey Park and the Lux Library and at the Valley Vista subdivision is going to be done by Public Works crews. And we have the pipe and the necessary fittings, and we'll be trenching that, installing that.
Roger, one thing, the weed abatement, does anybody?
Yes, Matt has initiated 3 or 4 letters that went out today on weed abatement, particularly with 4th of July right around the corner. We felt that we should take a proactive stance on that to make sure these weeds are down, because in the fireworks season, there's always a potential of a lot being caught on fire, and it could endanger a structure. So we've sent out, I think, 4 or 5 letters this morning. Yeah, 5. Yeah.
Right, on top of it. Any comments on Roger's report or questions?
Fire station's moving along as fast as can be expected under the circumstances. I mean, we've...
Slower than I want, but it's moving along.
Yeah, well, you can only go so fast, and
Faster than it should, but slower than he wants.
we've only been sure for a short time that we were going to build it. So, yeah, there was some comments at City Hall when I was there today that we're going to get some beds in and that sort of thing and make it work temporarily.
Yes.
I hope so. I'm going to need one Sunday.
Oh, is that the first overnighter?
Yes. Yeah,
You got the
Sunday
first
night.
shift?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Does it come inflated?
You have to pump it up.
All right, moving along, we've covered E, F, G, and H. 3I, public meetings and committee reports. Anything?
I already reported on Neighborhood Watch, and
You didn't have an
I think, Rick, did you attend AMBAG for
Yep.
me? Thank you.
Sorry. Oh,
I'm going to defer to Robert. My daughter had an award ceremony and a last day barbecue. He was there.
It's to you. You're
I'm next. Okay, I attended the AMBAG report with some interesting things, but nothing that really affects San Juan. The studies that they do every few years are moving along. They will affect San Juan, but they're not finished yet. So, and no LAPCO meeting.
okay. Robert?
Rally meeting, which is actually attending right now over in Hollister, and it's been an informational meeting for the public to come and find out information about the rally. Pretty much everything's all in the works. It's all set up for the 5th and 6th in Hollister. Everything's been going pretty well for that. Also had intergovernment meeting. Talks about the Pinnacles Highway and stuff has been kind of been back and forth, and reports from all the agencies. Nothing much has changed through there. Also had the fire committee. Fire committee talked over the contracts and everything are all been finished. We will be starting at 8 a.m. the 23rd. The relay of all the county equipment and stuff will be happening at 8 o'clock in the morning at that time. Bring it over, and so we're going to have a pretty busy Sunday going through all the equipment, getting it in service. And we'll be starting at, this will be Station 4 here, and we'll be starting at 8 o'clock, and San Juan will be having 24-hour coverage from there on. Also had the San Benito Business Council meeting, and they were really interested in our 5-year plan and what's been going on with that. A lot of stuff's been going around with different businesses, planning for the future. It was a pretty large group, so there was a lot of people talking.
What meeting was it?
The San Benito Business Council meeting.
Oh, Business Council, yeah.
Yeah. So I attended that. That was it for the month.
One question for you on the intergovernmental. What is the resistance to naming Highway 25 Pinnacles National?
The problem is everybody around it in that area, the financial part of it, of having changed business names, addresses, checking accounts, deeds. You know, they're finding it pretty much, a financial burden and an inconvenience to them. But the Gateway of the Pinnacles, trying to bring that through Hollister, so they're still kind of going back and forth on it.
Okay. Well, so far Soledad's got it. But,
Yeah.
Tony, can I ask you a question?
yes.
Did you have a strategic plan meeting this past?
Oh, yeah. As a matter of fact, we did. We're just moving along, working on mission and vision statements.
I understand from one of the people who attends those meetings that there's some talk about the orchard there on 3rd Street, and that might be a potential project for the strategic committee when they get ready to start projects. Is there some discussion on that? Because I think that'd be wonderful.
Just that it would be nice to do something with it more than what's being done with it now. But that's not ours, so we can't.
No, I know, but that maybe the strategic committee would be interested in trying to be a liaison with the parks.
I think they just said it would be a good idea to have something else done with it. It wasn't discussed in detail, just thrown out.
I had no meetings this month. So, okay.
Oh, I did attend one other meeting. Fracking, or anti-fracking was more what it was. It was just rather interesting. And I don't know how, I assume that today the supervisors passed their
Was that today?
I think that was today. 5-0 for the
Fracking?
the ordinance, that's what you'd call it. Yeah, it was an ordinance. As it stood, they didn't make any further changes on it. Anyway, there are some interesting fracking meetings going on at the San Juan Library. If anybody's interested, ask me. I can put you on their email list, because I got on it by going to one meeting. So if anybody is interested, those are happening at the San Juan Library.
Moving on. Consent items. Does anybody have anything they wish to pull?
I'd like to pull C.
Okay.
And I have a speaker card for item D. D is in blog.
Oh, okay. So,
That
okay,
worked, 'cause I had a
I'll pull
question
D.
on it.
Motion to approve A and B.
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. 4C. Approve
C,
minutes.
I need to abstain from voting on that one, but I can vote on the others. I wasn't at the entire meeting. It was my wife's birthday and I left early.
You left early, okay. So, all right, with that, caveat, what, absent, or
I would just abstain because
abstain, all right.
I missed the last part of the meeting, so.
Approve the minutes for March 19th, 2013 regular meeting with Mr. Edge abstaining.
Motion to approve, or second motion, or
Okay. Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
aye.
Okay.
Yeah, abstain.
Item D, adopt ordinance 2013, adopting rules and regulations for connection to city water services pursuant to section 6-4-115 of the municipal code.
And I have a speaker card from a Jerome Peters.
Okay. Let me get to it first.
You have the ordinance number 02.
All right. Roger?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as you recall, this ordinance was drafted to reflect any new water connections, sewer connections outside the city limits will require one of two things, that property requesting service for new water connections would be obligated to either annex to the city or sign an irrevocable offer to annex to the city for new water connections. The Section 2 says that there are a number of users and properties that are connected to the water systems that are outside our city limits, and if they disconnect it and for a period of more than 12 months, that they would be obligated to reconnect, and that they would be required to provide all labor, materials cost, and reconnect the fees of 50% of the current adopted water impact fees. Those are the two features.
Okay.
It should be that that's anybody that's currently served by the existing water system can continue to be served, but when they request a new water service, then they will be obligated to conform to this new ordinance.
Let's hear from them. State your name and address, please.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name's Jerome Peters. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. My question had to do with Section 2 with the reconnection fee. And one thing is I'd like to understand kind of why the magnitude of it is so great. I don't know if people really understand that, that's 50% of $14,000. I'm afraid that it might drive people away. It's not.
I think, yeah.
To me, it seems not very inviting, and it's really, in my eyes, it seems like it's a lot of money, and it's just.
It was. And I think the fee is $7,250. It is 50% of $7,250. The fees have been lowered.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I was just going by the website and the current.
That hasn't been updated yet, right?
Okay.
Okay. But the purpose of that is that when an owner is being served and then they disconnect their water service, and they let it go for a period of 12 months, they've lost any implied vested right, and that to reinvest and to get that vested right back, then they'll have to pay 50% of the water impact fee, connection fee for that. Mm-hmm. They have enjoyed it in the past without paying that connection fee for water capacity, but if they discontinue it for a period of 12 months or more, then they would have to pay. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I just didn't know if this is really. It seemed high to me, and I didn't know if other utilities in other districts, the ones that I looked at, didn't have similar fees. So it just seemed.
I think it's normal in other jurisdictions that if you have a use permit or any vested right and you terminate that vested right and for a period of 12 months, you've lost all of that, and then you have to start all over. And in some jurisdictions, it's 100% plus the new application to reestablish that use.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Answer your question.
About what it was.
Okay.
I appreciate the time.
And just to let you know, Mr. Jerome Peters does have a valid water connection. The property has been served for a number of years, and he will continue to serve that. And I think I talked with her earlier that if there is a new request, and say he wanted to subdivide that, and then the new connections would be subject to annexation, irrevocable annexation, and then payment and upgrade of the fees. But currently, he is vested for one connection, and he can continue to. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
So this connection is outside of the city's boundaries?
Yeah, his property is in the county right now. Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure it relieved him a little bit to find out that the numbers haven't been updated yet on our reduction that we made recently on the fee. So it's like $36.25 instead of the $7,000. Yeah. So that's somehow. I have a question, Mr. Mayor, on the same item, and it's kind of been covered because I couldn't remember what the amount was, and I couldn't find my paperwork that told me. So now I know the amount. And the other thing was something that Jerome asked, is this standard in other cities?
I don't know if the reconnection in the water is standard in other cities. I do know that if you terminate your use permit or conditional use permit for a period of 12 months, you've lost that vested right and you have to start all over.
Well, does this apply only to properties outside the city limits?
This applies to only to properties
Okay,
outside
that's
the
what I
city.
wasn't sure about. So if somebody in the city doesn't have their water connected for a year, they won't have to pay this fee.
That is correct.
This is only for outside
Outside the city.
of the city, because a lot of those connections probably shouldn't have been made in the first place, but they were by previous administrations.
Yeah. And I think Mr. Peters puts out a valid point. Is you're in the water business, and it behooves us to sell water because it's a revenue producer to offset it there,
Yeah.
and that we should encourage people on the outside is to hook up to our water system, and that's why we put that section 1 that we want some commitment to them that they will annex in the future or make an irrevocable offer annex, so that when there is contiguous city property adjacent to it, that then we can bring them into the city, and then we can experience the ad valorem tax rate and, that we've provided with them through our water system.
Should it have something in that paragraph that it is only referring to properties outside of the...
The whole ordinance applies.
Well, section 1 does.
It's out of the
Okay,
city limits.
okay, yeah, you're right, it does. Okay, never mind.
of the code.
Okay, I get it.
And just to reinforce that, there have been connections made out, going out Mission, the horse
Vineyard.
trail, or whatever you call
Deanza?
Deanza, and out towards Fremont's Peak, and no stipulation that was ever made that they had to annex into the city.
Yeah.
You know, so my opinion on this thing here is, if you want city water, you're going to commit to joining the city of San Juan Bautista, or at some period, at some point in time.
Yeah.
And you know, like Roger said, we're in the business, we sell water, but still, you know, I know that one going out to the fish place there, they never paid $14,000 for that water connection. They probably didn't pay anything.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
I mean,
Well,
it wasn't them.
And plus, all these connections should have had, that were made after LAFCO was formed, should have had LAFCO
That's
approval, and didn't. So that's another issue.
Okay, any other questions on this ordinance? 2013-02,
Motion to approve?
second.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carried. Moving on, item 5A, public hearing, Valley Vista LLD. 1, approve resolution 2013 confirming a diagram and assessment in connection with the Valley Vista Landscape and Lighting Maintenance Assessment District number 1 for fiscal year 2013-2014. Approve 2, approve resolution 2013 certifying compliance with state law with respect to the levying of general and special taxes, assessments, and property-related fees and charges.
And Mr. Mayor, those would be 2013-18 and 2013-19, and I also have a speaker card on this item.
Okay. Any questions from the council? Everybody knows what this is. Speak,
Wanda Guibert.
Now is the time for the public hearing.
public hearing. I'll open the public hearing.
I was hoping there'd be a staff report, because I don't really know what...
Oh,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, we can give it.
Yeah. Mr. Mayor, members of council, the Valley Vista Assessment District, each year we establish an operational and maintenance budget for them. This year, we are pleased to announce that we have had the ability to reduce the assessments this year, and the reduction has been 8.06% from last year. Last year's budget, as you recall, we solicited input from the residents of the subdivision and gave them two options. Option one was to maintain the existing system as is, the landscaping contract, and the other option was to reduce the landscaping operation to a lower level of service where the owners would take care of the landscaping medium in front, and so we presented that. We asked each voter to submit us a vote of how they wanted to go. The option one was voted unanimously, it was by majority rule, so we established last year a budget of $22,000 or so, and then the assessments were spread over 36 parcels on that there. There are 4 parcels, I believe, in there that have secondary units, and they are assessed at 1.25 times the normal rate. This year, we're happy to announce that we can do the same amount of service for a cost of $21,640. So we've spread that, and it resulted in a reduction in assessment of 8% to the residents of the subdivision. Again, the residents that have a secondary unit are charged 1.25% of that base rate and stuff. And so we feel very comfortable that the current budget that we've established will cover the cost. Now, coupled with that is that we are completing the purple reclaimed water pipe system, which is the Valley Vista subdivision is part of, and they will have the swing elbow, and they will be connecting it to their irrigation system. And when that is there, then the irrigation to the landscaping material will be fed through the reclaimed water. That will be an additional reduction of their water costs, because in the budget, approximately $3,200 of that total $21,000 is earmarked for the cost of water that currently comes from our potable water system. Once we get the reclaimed water into service, it will probably be sometime in October, November, they will see a reduction. Particularly it'll come to bear is next spring when, and in the warmer season, when they get irrigating their landscaping material more often. But that will help us in managing their budget, and then this following year we hope to announce an additional reduction in next year's fiscal budget where we can lower the assessments again. And I'll turn that over to you.
Any other? Go ahead.
Vandegee Bear, 5 Donner Street. I'm one of the 4 property owners that has the secondary unit in the back, so we have been paying quite a bit more than the other property owners, and I really appreciate the time that Roger took to ask questions about how many faucets and how many, what water services are available in each unit. And though, of course, I'd like the fees to be lower, I think it's a fair assessment, and I encourage you to adopt it, especially since we're going to be the ones using reclaimed water on our street strip, or the lawn strip. So I think it's a good plan.
Thank you. And I think it was, I tried to reiterate to most of the residents there is that this council is really working on their behalf to do the most efficient job and keep the best system going at the least amount of cost. And I think that's our duty and responsibility to them.
Yeah, how many bills go down? It's the only one I know about.
True.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask one? Oh.
Any other speaker cards?
No other speakers.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Jolene?
Roger, you will still be able to build up the reserves that we need for any repairs or replacement that we need to do over there?
Yeah. Each year in our budget of the $21,000 that's spread out there, we include what we call a budget reserve. This year we've earmarked it at $1,000. And if it's not used into the reserves, next year that's added to their reserves and it builds up. Currently they have over $50,000 in reserves in that account. That is really earmarked for tree replacement, irrigation replacement, distribution replacement, stuff like that. So the inhabitants of the Valley Vista are building up a reserve so that they're guaranteed that there is going to be funds available to handle the maintaining that system and upgrading it and replacing it when it wears out.
So it's not for, the reserve is not for like underground pipes and infrastructure, it's more for the above?
No,
It's for
underground
everything,
pipes, sprinkler
anything.
systems,
Anything.
trees, anything that's associated with landscaping. And I think that's our responsibility, is to make sure that each year a little bit is added to it, so it builds up the reserve, so that more often in assessment districts, a pump or a road deteriorates, and then it's circulated. It says, oh, everybody has to kick in $5,000 to upgrade the road or upgrade the system. Well, this way here, there is the funds to do it automatically and not have to come up with a draconian assessment at the end of that period.
So assessment districts really do make sense
Yes.
for infrastructure, and, yeah.
If properly funded, they make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Do we know the amount for the total assessment? There's
Let's see, that would be in our budget.
Yeah.
Under,
There's one blank in your resolution.
the assessment is $21,720.
But we're assessing less than that?
Yes.
We're assessing less than that. Okay.
Yeah.
Is $21,720?
$720. Yeah.
That would be the maximum assessment that would be allowed under the...
Yeah. Last year, the assessment was spread at $23,624.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the council?
Motion to approve.
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That covered both,
No, we should do a separate motion on the second resolution, which is just certifying the compliance with state law.
okay, I need another public hearing?
No.
No. Okay, resolution 2013-19, certifying compliance with state law with respect to the levy of general and special taxes, assessments, and property-related charges.
Move to approve.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Okay, moving on, item
Right along.
5B, approved job description for assistant planner.
I also have a speaker card on that item.
Okay. Roger?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we've got together with Matt, and Trish and I developed a project, not a project, but a employee description of the classification for an assistant planner. We've taken that off of several cities that have very similar positions, and we've detailed it there. And we've kind of outlined the specific examples and duties and responsibilities of 14 different items. And then we've acknowledged his acknowledgement and skills to there. And one of the features that we were more interested in too is that his transportation background, working with Santa Cruz, and in North Dakota land use, but because we're a historical city, that he has taken some courses at the college level in historical resources and planning, and so I think that he's got a broad background, and Matt's in the audience if he wants to come in and speak to his expertise, if you have any questions.
So this would, hopefully Matt's going to stay with us for several years, but in the future it would also give you a guideline as to who you're going to hire.
Right, this would establish the classification for that position.
Any comments from the council?
And attached with that job description is Matt Leal's resume, which you can see is his academical background as well as his experience and stuff like that.
Pretty well fits in. I'm glad he
I feel very comfortable. I think he's up to the challenge, and he has that intensity that I think is going to fit well with us.
So you had a speaker card?
Yes,
Yeah, I have some
Vandy
comments
Bear.
if you want to do
Please.
council first.
Hi, Vandy Bear, 5 Downer Street. As the chair of the HRB and as a member of the Planning Commission, I wanted to read you a letter. I think you got this at about 11 o'clock this morning. You may have not had time to look at it, from Cara Vonk. She said, "Dear City Council members, please add the following to the Assistant Planning job description. Knowledge of California Historic Preservation Principles and duties. Apply historic preservation principles under CEQA, the California Historic Building Code, the Secretary of the Interior Standards, and the City of San Juan Bautista Historic Preservation Ordinance." I would like to support those ideas because being San Juan Bautista, City of History, we need to keep historic preservation in mind. And Roger mentioned that Matt has some background in that. I would like also to suggest that the planner, either the assistant planner or the future full-time planner, also take coursework that the planning commissioners are required to take every year. We just completed a free PowerPoint presentation that was offered by the State Historic Office of Preservation, and I thought it was very beneficial. I think we all did, and I would like to see the planner take it as well.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I talked with Matt, and when those CLG courses come up and training sessions, that we want to make sure that Matt can get certified and get the training in that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, is there anything we need to add to this job description to cover those?
No, I think it's
Okay.
you know,
Jolene?
It's there under, what was that last thing, and any other duties that he's assigned. Yeah, I had some similar type things, and I'd like to hear Matt speak a little about his knowledge of the historical and preservation, that sort of thing, because that doesn't come out strongly in his resume, and I know he has some experience in that. My favorite thing is he told me today he has friends at District 5 Caltrans. Maybe he can get that road straightened out and put a bike path in it and make it smaller. And
That may not be a good recommendation.
but yeah, I was wondering, do you feel like you need anything about filling in for planning director / city manager as needed in public meetings, Roger, or do you think that's covered in there?
I think
And also,
other duties as assigned, you know, and,
Okay.
and everything, and certainly he's going to be very instrumental in helping me do a lot of things, not only
Yeah.
in planning but in management and code enforcement and building regulations and stuff like that. So
yeah, that was the other thing. Anything about code enforcement, if we needed anything about investigating zoning, not only investigating zoning violations, which you have in here, but also enforcing city codes, because that's something a lot of people aren't very excited to be doing because they feel like they're being the bad guy, when really they're just enforcing existing codes. And then the other thing was anything about grant applications. Will he be assisting you in that aspect also?
yes.
So it doesn't all need to be spelled out in here. This is thorough enough.
Anything else?
Can we ask Matt to speak
That's
a little?
up to you folks. I mean, you're the ones adopting it.
Yeah. Yeah. Does anyone feel like we need to have more in there, or that this covers?
Are we adding in Cara Vonk's request?
We can.
That's what she was asking, was that we add that in there.
Roger seemed to think it was covered.
Under
But,
other
I mean,
duties,
we
it's
can
not-
add it under another item, you know, and just says,
Item number 15, or under knowledge of.
knowledge of.
Yeah, and it may be under knowledge of, something about historical
Right
and
under
preservation.
principal practices of urban planning, and just say principles and practices of historical preservation. Under
Yeah.
the
That would be
sequel,
appropriate.
yeah.
That'll work.
Put that in, yeah.
What item is that?
That's on the back page,
On the back page, under knowledge of.
first item.
And it would be the second item, we could just put under there, under principles and practices of urban planning and development, principles and practices of historical preservation.
That's good.
Hey, Roger, does that, since Matt's already on board and we implement this, do we implement it now? Does he meet those standards? I mean, I'm not questioning, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
or do we do it at a later date?
No, I think-
I just want to be comfortable with, he's
Yeah,
on
no,
board.
I think it's his
and,
required
now
knowledge.
we're adding
is-
something
you know,
after we hire.
He has some
Okay.
exposure to it, and
Yeah.
what we're going to do is make sure that he fosters and continues the education.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah, because you can also put that in. I've had it put into my resume, or not resume, a job description of various jobs I've had where something about ability to learn this aspect if it's not already in your...
Right, ability or willing to take the proper
Yeah.
courses or training, to have that. That's what I'd like to see. But
Yeah.
But there is a section on ability.
Ability to.
okay,
Yeah, we could put it under ability to instead of required knowledge.
okay, I'm good.
Okay.
But, Mr. Mayor, I would like to hear what he's got to say about his own background in that.
Matt, would you like to address the council?
What do you know about historical preservation, principles and practices?
Well, at Cal Poly, there's several courses that we take. Kind of one of them that comes to mind is the intro course, which kind of goes over the history of planning and just kind of how these different rules and regulations were formed. As far as specific work that I've done in preservation, historical buildings and things. I worked as an intern for the city of Hollister while I was at Cal Poly, and there we kind of did some inventories of the buildings in downtown and kind of discovering which buildings have the opportunity to have upper level housing, but as far as kind of really diving into historical preservation, that's kind of one of the things that is prevalent here in San Juan, and that I will be learning quite a bit, and I already have my last 2 days here, just going out on the job site with Roger today, looking at the brewery building, and so yeah, definitely anxious to learn about it, and we'll be learning from all of you.
Yeah.
And this morning I sat down with him before we went out and had a meeting with the property owners around the brewery building, and I showed them all of the design guidelines we have in historical buildings, the inventories, and the studies that have been done so far, and he's getting up to speed on those, and he'll be studying those right along. Almost every application, particularly when I went over today, we had a client come in and talk about the zoning of a personal property, and we went back and then researched it and found out that it was a older building, and it was on the historical inventory of the city of San Juan Bautista, and it was designated as a 5D3 series, and so we did the research, and that was his first exposure to our system of how we designated it. I think that was an educational program for him, as well as now he understands the implications of it. So it's come along good.
So maybe it would be more applicable to put it under ability to learn rather than knowledge of.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just a thought. What do you think?
I guess, one of the other things to add, from the land use plans that I did work on for the city of Grand Forks, North Dakota, and East Grand Forks, Minnesota, they have specific elements for historical areas, but most of that is kind of just similar to kind of having that inventory and kind of knowledge of those specific buildings in similar documents that we have here in the city of San Juan Bautista. But yeah, again, I'm willing to learn as much as I can and learn from all of you. And if you have any other questions while I'm up here, I don't think I had a full-on interview session, and so, yeah.
Well, I'm pretty comfortable that you're the man for the job.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I point out you're approving the job description and that you're not
Yes,
actually.
I know.
Hiring.
I know.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where to put that, whether he already has the principles and practices, or whether it would be ability to learn them.
Okay, I need a motion to approve job description for assistant planner.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item C, approve resolution 2013, 20, must be 20,
Yeah.
authorizing mayor to sign contract with the city of Hollister to provide fire protection services.
And Mr. Mayor, members of the council, again, this contract is very similar to what we approved on May 23rd. There was some modifications that we came back with, and the big modification is that we labeled it as an agreement, and the city attorney of Hollister was adamant that it should be a contract. And so we made sure that all the references in the document was contract rather than a mixture of contract agreements and stuff. And so we went through it. There was a few changes that were made, and one was the staffing level of our volunteers. They wanted to cap it at 6 members rather than open it in. We had a assistant fire chief, assistant fire chief, 2 lieutenants, and then we said and others, and they wanted to cap it at 6. So that was, and I talked with John, and he says, that's fine, we can cap it at 6. And again, if it becomes a problem, I said to come back to him, and they'll discuss it, and we'll adjust it. So the other provision was the operational cost of the, on page 3 of 4, was the operational cost that the sewer and water heating of the facilities will is going to be the city's responsibility, but the telephone, internet, and cable TV and the communications will be the radio communications will be reimbursed. So our obligation is to make sure that the sewer, the water, and the electrical, and the heating is maintained by us. And we analyze that, and it's just a very nominal cost to our total PG&E. The water and sewer is really a wash because we don't bill ourselves sewer and water as it is. So the main thing would be is the electrical and the telephone, and some of that telephone is going to be reimbursed. Is the amount of telephone connections that we use when we correspond back to forth to the city, that's reimbursable, but the local stuff that we use internally here, and so we have to do a little cost counting to make sure that what's reimbursed and what's not reimbursed. Let's see. Can't think of anything. Schedule B was pretty standard. Schedule C was the same. There was no charge. We just made sure that it's there. And then Schedule E. And Schedule E was really written on our behalf, where that's where we mentioned earlier is the San Juan Bautista volunteer will be staffed by no more than 6 volunteers, comprising of the fire chief.
Now, will the stipend be paid from the city or
From
Hollister?
From Hollister.
Okay, they will pay the volunteers out of their budget then?
Yes. San Juan Volunteers is to be continued along tuition. The San Juan Volunteers under and will be not members of the Hollister Fire Department, but they are eligible for hire into there, and they will be operating under the Hollister Fire Chief, and they will be subject to the stipend and operational plan when they're called out.
So this is going to reduce our stipend cost quite a bit.
No, the stipend that we use internally here, we will honor, but everything that's outside the city limits will be subject to reimbursement from them.
So the city calls are going to be paid through the city stipend?
Stipend, yes.
And the county calls are going to be like the reimbursement we used to have with the
With-
auto aid agreement?
With the auto aid agreement. yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Is
that's
that
pretty
just for
much
the 6 volunteers?
Just
That's
for
just
the
for the 6
6
volunteers, yeah.
Okay.
And last year, our contract was for about $10,000 with the county, and of that, approximately 30% was internally here, and 70% was the outside. So it would amount to about $3,000.
But most calls would be handled by the on-duty.
On duty, where they're responding outside, and that would be subject to on-call
first out.
stipends. Yeah.
I'm not distrustful of the city of Hollister, but I think all the T's should be crossed and the I's dotted. So we were told that we were going to have 3 firemen on duty 24/7. And I would expect to find that in staffing levels, and I didn't see it stated there. But what I do see is no less than 1 fire company would be assigned here. How many people is a fire company?
It can be the 2 to 3 with a training officer.
With the training officer, yeah.
Okay. So in other words, during the week, there might be a training officer and
Yeah.
two
Two
reserves
deputies,
or
yeah.
volunteers.
Yeah.
Okay. I just feel like if we're being promised 3
Right.
people, it should say in there, and
That's-
it bothers me when it doesn't.
Well,
So,
Yeah.
I understood it to be 2 guys, 24/7, and then a, whatever, chief or whatever.
Captain,
for 40, captain,
training, yeah.
for 40 hours a week. That was the way I understood it.
yeah, I thought it was supposed to be 3 people, 3 bodies.
Yeah, and I think the last paragraph on the staffing is this: there will be 3-person response to all incidents.
Response to the incident means they show up at the incident. It doesn't mean they're in the firehouse. What
But it
I'm
also says
concerned
no
with-
less than 1 fire company will be assigned to the San Juan Bautista Fire Station.
Yeah. But then
Isn't that your
that
black
should
and
be
white?
translated. My point is that should be translated to say a fire company consists of X
There will
number of
be a
bodies.
3-person response to all incidents. No less than 1 fire company will be assigned to the San Juan Bautista Fire Station.
So what, I think what Rick's asking is, what does a fire company consist of?
Bob said 3
Now-
3 total.
3 is what they, but each unit may be different.
They can
Cal
be
Fire
made up of
sometimes may
different
have 4O
compositions.
staffing. They may have 3O staffing. It all depends on how they, I understand what, I don't know how they have that written on what they're considering a company.
You know, Rick, like Fairview right now is a 2-0 staffing for the
Yeah.
whole county, and then Aroma Tri-County, which is a 2-0 staffing, you know, so. But I do know that, I know Captain Dover's starting here Monday, so he'll be here 8 to 5, and whatever's on duty, 2 or 3 people, there could be actually, if there's 3, there'll be 4 from, you know, a downtime where we can draw off reserves because everybody's working. But I know that he's been assigned here, so you could actually have 3, maybe 4, if you have 3 on the shift. You know, you'll have a 4th, you'll have a captain supervising this, you know, between that 8 and 5. But I don't know if an engine company's 2 or 3 or whatever. But
I hate to be nitpicky, but You
No,
know,
it's
if there's
understandable.
ever a question
That's
down the
what I brought
road,
up to
then
them.
they can point to this and they can say, well, this is all we promised you. And all along, I was hearing we would have 3 bodies here 24/7. And that's one of the reasons why I bought into this. Not the only reason, definitely. But what I
Sounded
heard
stronger.
then, I feel like I should see written down. And response to guaranteeing 3 people respond could be 2 are here in the station, and we guarantee you that a 3rd person will show up at the incident. That's not the same thing as having 3 people in the firehouse.
But doesn't it define that one fire company is 3 people?
No, Bob just said that. It's not stated in here, and I don't know what a fire company equals. So my point is, it should say a fire company is defined as X number of firemen, or 2 firemen and 1 fire captain, or whatever. I don't care how they word it. I'm just saying it's jargon, and unless you're in the fire service, you don't know what it means. And it could apparently mean more than 1 configuration. I just wanted to say 3 bodies will be in the fire station 24/7, regardless. I don't care if it's 3 captains, 3 training officers, or 3 reserves, or 3 volunteers. But all through this thing, I heard 3, and I just want to see 3. And I don't want to hold this up because we're trying to get it going, but maybe we should talk about amending it down the road.
Because
You know, it's not clear.
Like I
sorry.
said,
You have to keep in mind that you can't unilaterally amend it. This also takes the agreement of the city
Right.
of Hollister,
Right,
which has approved the agreement in this form.
right. I understand that, and that's why I don't want to hold it up, because they've already approved it. And the county's already approved their agreement with them.
And we've reviewed this agreement. We did not review the agreement in detail, the one you approved on May 23rd. We weren't aware that that was going to be approved on that day. But George has reviewed this.
Yeah, see, because my interpretation was there were going to be 2 guys here 24 hours a day. And
Okay.
then 1 guy here 8 to 5, but Monday through Friday. That's
Well.
what, I don't know, I think that's what I heard at one point.
Maybe
That's what I was told.
maybe I was hearing
No,
the wrong thing
no,
all along.
I'm not disagreeing. I just,
If we approve it tonight, I can get a clarification from Michael Connor, the definition of a fire company, and I think that should probably be maybe followed up with a letter so that you are assured that a fire company consists of three I'd say firefighters, or it could be a combination of firefighters, fire engineers, or fire captains, or lieutenants, anyone,
Or training officers?
or training officers.
Was I the only one that was left with that impression?
No, I
I-
thought it too, but I'm
Yeah.
reading it here and I'm seeing it differently than you. I'm seeing, well, this says there's going to be 3 people right here.
Yeah, 3-0 staffing.
Yeah.
Where's that? I missed that.
Well, the thing I just read you, there will be a 3-person response to all incidents. No less than 1 fire company will be assigned to the San Juan Bautista Fire Station. I guess I'm assuming that a fire company is the 3rd-person response, and you're not willing to assume that. So it's all in the interpretation of what you're
Rick
reading.
and I both
like
have had dealings
And
with
we'll get it.
Hollister, and we don't.
And I think we'll get a clarification on that.
Yeah, and
in writing,
the other thing that seems to cover us a little is this administrative accountability. They're going to be having meetings with Andy and Robert and Roger on a regular basis to make sure that this system is working and is making everybody happy. And that's some coverage there too, is that there is ongoing communication,
objectives.
which in the past has been part of the problem
We meet
with
quarterly.
the county fire. And now there's administrative accountability, financial accountability, management.
My point is that 3-person response to an incident does not mean all 3 people came from the firehouse. It means they're going to be at the scene.
But it also says no less than 1 fire company will be assigned to the San Juan Bautista
But,
Fire
But I
Station.
had to ask
And-
how many people in a
Yeah,
fire
no,
company. So I'm
I
saying
understand that.
it-
Just from the meetings, because I used to be on the
Yeah.
fire committee, and they always talked about three-person companies. So I think in Hollister's lingo, a fire company is three people.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what their union demands, if I'm not mistaken.
when you're dealing with legalities,
Yeah.
what's not
You're right.
said is not always implied.
How about if we put it this way? If you guys approve it, I'll sign the contract with a letter of clarification as to what a fire company consists of. And we want it to
Requesting that that be
consist of three
clarified?
people.
But you can't,
Is that
that's not going to
acceptable?
change. If you approve the contract
Yeah.
in this form, you approve the contract in this form. The letter of clarification is not necessarily binding.
But we can
An
go back and
amendment
amend
could-
it
You could amend it.
as long as both parties agree, right?
Exactly. Exactly, precisely.
So let's work on that. I mean, I'll take a letter, but let's work on getting it amended.
Well, I think we had a letter.
Give me a letter, you know.
The letter's not going to be as binding as part of the contract. That's what Bob just said.
When we went to amend it, you got this, hey, you guys said.
That's what the
Yeah.
fire company is. It's a three-person.
But I understand.
I just cross the Ts and dot the Is. I worked in insurance for 10 years, and it's got to be written down.
It says, I think,
I worked for a good company.
good term.
It was all the bad ones they told me about.
What's that?
Yes, ma'am?
We have a speaker.
Who are you?
Why, can you authorize the mayor to sign the contract with the condition that Rick's issue be 3 firemen at the hall at all times? Could that be done?
Yeah, but according
No.
to Bob, it would not be
No,
binding.
you either accept the contract, the four corners of the contract, as is before you, as it was approved by the city of Hollister, you accept it, and then you can negotiate an amendment. They need not agree to an amendment. Both parties have to agree. It has to be a meeting of the minds. Right now, the meeting of the minds would be on the terms of this agreement.
Yeah, I agree with Rick 100% on that. It's not clear. You know, like he says, it can be 2 here, 1 they can send in, you have 3.
Thank you, Richard.
You know,
I'll support this.
Yeah,
I'm behind it, just not 100%. I'd like to see this clarified, that's all. And, you know, we'll work on it, and you know, if they drag their feet or balk at making the amendment, then we got a problem, if they won't commit to that. So, but I will support this. I'll vote
Well,
for it.
the other way to kind of look at it is, right now, we don't have 2 guys 24/7,
No, that's true.
and that's an improvement.
It's an
over-
improvement, definitely.
It's an improvement. We've also added money for this. We've added more money to our budget, you know, for this to happen. And if this is what we're promised, this is what we need to have. You know, I mean, if they said, well, hey, we'll give you 3 if you raise your budget 40,000, and then all of a sudden give us 2, when's it going to stop?
But your answer to Rick, when he said, what is a fire company, was 3 people.
3
And that's
of us.
my
3
answer
of us.
also, so
Yeah.
I have no problem
But
with it.
he, you know,
Because I
it's
consider a
not
fire company
clarified
to be
in there
3 people.
exactly what
It's
a
true.
company
It's
is.
not-
I mean,
it's
the
not
definition
clarified
could
in there.
change tomorrow.
But I am comfortable that that is what they meant.
Yeah.
And I don't really have a problem with it. So I think as far as amending it, if we need that down the road, I have no doubt that they will be willing to add that wording in there. So I don't really have any reservation
I'm comfortable
on
with
it,
it.
even though I
'cause
understand what you're saying.
The
but
following,
I
the
don't.
workings of it, any major incident, you're going to get a station, you're going to have our engine respond, and the tones will go down for Station 2. Correct me if I'm wrong, Bob?
Yeah.
And they'll be en route, so you'll get 2
Oh, yeah.
engine companies.
You know, there'll be staging,
Yeah,
move-ups.
move-ups, and
Everything.
We're going to get, you know, if a structure fire is reported in town, this engine will go, and Hollister will start another engine company.
And we'll have 3 other engines here that
You know, so
that can be staffed and
I don't know. I just,
Our apartment
I'll
fire
go back
was
like
perfect.
Tony and say that, hey, I think it's way better than what we had. It's a way improvement, and we can clarify it. I do know on Monday, you know, we'll have a 40-hour captain here. And,
Well, basically,
you
it's
know,
like
it's-
anything else. We'll see how it works
yeah,
out.
I mean, you know, it's
And
a,
we'll have a council person.
Yeah.
I'm willing to make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. I will sign the contract.
Did that, let's see, did that require any numbers?
It was 2013-20.
What was it?
20.
20?
2013-20.
Thank you.
Okay.
A budget.
Okay, here comes the big one. Item D, consider resolution 2013-21,
21.
adopting the fiscal year 2013-2014 budget.
This hasn't changed very much from the last time we took this up, has it?
You got a
I think the,
cover page that
The
Roger
big change
showed.
was, is as we discussed at our last budget hearing, is that I showed you a budget 45, which has been floating around, and we pay a lot of membership minor and permit fees that vary
Which
from
is pretty minor.
AMBAG, mosquito abatement, GSI, water fees, and integrated waste. And those fees or expenses have been coming out of various, and I'm going to give the example, the city clerk's budget, you know, without having a category, it just lumps into hers, and it kind of skews the cost of that service and everything. So I created a budget 45, and I had at one time 14 different budgets in it. Then I recognized that some of them should be in the water department, some of them should be in the sewer department, some of them should be in the planning, engineering, and I think at the last meeting we talked about the GSI. It was a $8,180 membership fee to that, and I had it under general, you know, budget 45. But we felt that maybe 70% of it should be in planning and 30% in engineering, because those are the two principal agencies that use it more than anybody. So I took that out of budget 45, and I added $6,135 in the planning department and $2,045 in the engineering department. But then I reduced that same amount out of budget 45, which is in your summary there. The total amount of the budget didn't increase or decrease. It was still $1,060,000. Now, we're still having a problem in making sure that when we pay these bills and it comes in front of you on your warrant list, that it gets into the right accounts. And that's what I've always struggled with, is making sure that it's put in the right budget department as well as the right category. And I think Councilman Cosio came in and we discussed that, and there were some skewed expenses in various departments that didn't make sense. And when we started to examine it, we found that some of these things had been mislabeled and put into these things. And I'm going to get together with Wendy, and then we're going to correct them and to make sure that they're categorized in the right thing. I also sat with Trish and Michelle and Wendy, and I told them that for now on, when the warrants come in and the bills come in to be paid, is that each bill would be coded into the proper budget department, whether it's a 20, a 10, or a 13, you know, and the proper code into the various accounts of that thing. And that each department head is going to have to review those before they come to you to make sure that you approve them. And then it makes Wendy's job a lot easier, because then she can allocate it according to what somebody's reviewed and say, hey, this is the way it should be. And it takes a lot of burden off of, right now, Trish and Michelle, because they get the warrants, you know, and they get maybe 75 to 100 bills coming in, and just as well, should this go into this department, you know, and there's so much activity, and it takes somebody a lot of time to go through there. And so by implementing this department head review before it gets to Trish and Michelle, and then they can analyze it and then give it to Wendy, I think it'll correct itself. And just today, when Colleen came in and we went through some of the stuff, we discovered some of the activities that have been going on where we've been labeling it into the clerk's budget as well as the finance, and it should have been in some other budget.
That's great. I think this is really
Yeah.
good.
And that's more of the internal control that we have to administer. And I'm trying to be as transparent as possible to say to you guys, what does the city manager cost you? And if we do it right, you can say, hey, it's X amount of dollars. What does the finance department cost? What does the clerk cost? What's the planning department budget cost? And if we allocate everything right and it's budgeted accordingly, then you say, hey, that's what planning is costing us, that's what the engineering, what's the water department is costing us, and that's what the sewer department costs. So we have a better feel of it.
Better allocate the time.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, what Roger and I talked about a little bit, and this might work into a little bit of Robert's question on 612 security, that even though we want to look at it by department, the way that this all is, our normal budget, there's a section there where you can look at total amount for, say, insurance, 516. Total amount for dues and subscriptions, 530. Total amount for security, 612. Total amount for bank charges, 638. Total amount for electricity, 642. Because those were some of the ones that I had questions about. And sometimes when you're looking at it by department, you're looking for security under 5 different sections, because each department pays a little bit of the security. And so in order to just clean up the budget a little and make sure that you have all the numbers there and have them correctly, it's almost like a second check of all of your figures to look at it as each of those items rather than by department, or in addition to by department, I should say. And then you might catch little things like you probably all noticed that the projected amount for, say, city manager expenditures says 50,000. Well, that column doesn't add up to 50,000. It's closer to 34,000.
But it's the other departments added in onto that one
Right.
that are allocated through that time.
Well, no, it actually is 34. It's a mistake.
Right.
So if you have a second check of all these numbers, then you can go, well, wait a minute, I'm off somewhere, and catch all that stuff. So that's what we talked about a little, and it's all stuff that he can clean up with Wendy, because she can get on her spreadsheet and look at the numbers any way she wants to, by department, or by security, or by insurance. You know, each one she can separate it out and make sure that those numbers match. Because when you're dividing it into 5 different places, you might have a mistake somewhere. And I also wanted to comment that thanks to Roger, the figures for both legal, hi Bob, and engineering look really great compared with what we had budgeted for those. He keeps those figures down nicely.
Well, we try to interface with Bob and as much as we can to, keep their work as a minimum, so that then when we need some legal interpretations, then it's not a burden on them.
Right, because sometimes we do need them,
Yeah.
and we want to have the money available to use you when we really need you.
That's fine with us. Yeah, just use us as you need it. We're glad to be here when we're needed, but that's fine.
You had a question?
Oh, no, she answered.
Oh. Okay. Any other questions on the budget?
No.
Basically like what we did the other day. Entertain a motion to approve the budget?
So moved.
Moved. Second. We have a second.
I'll second it.
All in favor of approving Resolution 2013-21, adopting the fiscal year 2013-14 budget? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, moving along. Discussion items. A, community hall user policies. Roger?
As you recall, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we kind of briefly discussed this at our last meeting where we had a discussion on how to assess nonprofit organizations using our community center, yet coming up with a reasonable fee where we can offset some of our costs to maintain that building. Right now, there's two classifications of users. There's the nonprofit, and then there are the pay for user fees, the commercial aspect of it where somebody will rent the facility and pay the necessary rental fee as well as the cleanup deposit. And the cost to maintain the building is increasing all the time, particularly during the winter months with the heating, electricity, as well as the thing. And now we have a fee structure that does not recover any fee from the nonprofit. Now, the nonprofits try to help out as much as they can, but there's an implied consent that there's a certain amount of wear and tear on the facility that's going on, whether it's the commercial users, the renters, or the nonprofit. And so we felt that somewhere along the line we should be putting away a certain amount of dollars to replace the floor, fix up the lighting systems, and do the maintenance necessary to keep and preserve that building to maintain its integrity and the community use. And right now it's just kind of breaking even and not going into the hole. In private practice, we use this as a depreciation, where you depreciate your assets and then you make sure that you set aside a certain amount of money to replace that facility when it wears out and it has to be replaced. In government, we call it capital recovery cost.
Has anybody got any solutions?
I shouldn't speak because I don't have my glasses and I can't read this very well, but it seems to me like...
Well, Mike?
They might work. It seems to me like we're charging, correct me if I'm wrong, we're charging a cleaning deposit, and then if they don't trash the place, they get the money back. And if that's the case, I think we need to be charging a cleaning charge that comes out of that deposit to cover the cleanup. I mean, I can't believe that the place is immaculate when somebody leaves and we don't need to expend any city resources to clean it up and
Especially
make it
since
ready
it
for
says
the next user.
It says in the contract not to clean the floor, that we'll do it.
Yeah, so I mean,
that's the first time I noticed that.
The church rents out the Casa Maria to nonprofit organizations, but they have to pay a cleaning charge because we have a crew that goes in and cleans up after an event. And so even though it's a nonprofit and they don't have to pay a rental fee, they still have to cover the costs. And that doesn't even cover, water, sewer, electricity, especially electricity. But the cleaning costs they do pay for. So I'm wondering, is our place left so clean that the city crews don't have to go in there and do some kind of prep before we can give somebody else the key?
That's not the comments I've heard.
Pardon me?
It's not the comments I've heard.
What have you heard?
I had a couple that was pretty messy.
And are we charging? But I mean, I think every user ought to have to pay something. There's a certain amount of cost that the city's expending that doesn't even get into wear and tear.
Yeah.
We're talking wear and tear, but what about actual costs expended in preparing it for the next user?
Who are the nonprofit users?
To see, Trish made a list up at Tai Chi, was it?
Yes,
Quilter.
hygiene,
Quilters.
The Holiness de Antonio, the seniors, every week. And we did have community pantry distributing days on the front area, but they moved downtown. So we're looking forward down the street. Boy Scouts use it rather regularly. I think service clubs do too. Michelle was informing me.
Yeah,
The service club?
Boy Scouts, the Service Club, San Juan Service.
Now, are any of these like weekly on a schedule?
Over
They're all on schedule?
They are on schedule.
And we hold a $200 cleaning charge from them?
The last time this was discussed, we decided for these nonprofits that were using it regularly that we would collect a $200 deposit, and as we, as needed for cleanup, we would draw from that and bill them for the, if they used $50, we would then bill them $50, but we kept that deposit on hand. Now, I guess there really isn't that big an issue with nonprofits cleaning up. I have to run that by Michelle because they, of course, with that arrangement, they don't get anything back. Roger and I discussed the cleaning charge, keeping it on hand, and I was just concerned that if you tell them this is a cleaning charge, that they'll always leave it a mess. What do they have to lose? There's nothing being drawn from their deposit. I mean, if you leave an apartment and you're told that you're not going to get your deposit back, you just leave it the way it is, right? So that was just my concern. I think the $25 starting at that, we were concerned at the last meetings that I think that these nonprofits need to be invited to these meetings and we didn't get to that. So it's continuing this for another month so we could send a letter out to them, letting them know how to get their input and an opportunity to make comment on this would be appropriate.
That's, I'd like to hear their side of it or what they can do. I did notice in the warrant list there was a $200 check to the Boy Scouts.
There was a $200 back to them?
Yeah.
Again?
Probably have refund.
That's a refund.
I'm not sure if there
That
was
wasn't
an
their
event
cleaning.
there that, a one-time event.
They
they
have
used-
like
that was
a
that,
move up. They don't use that all the time. Like a special ceremony, Eagle Scout with families come in. They'll use it, but they usually meet it on
They
Jefferson.
used that was a spaghetti feed that they had
Yeah.
last month, I think.
Oh.
One-time event.
Right, they had it, but
They left it clean enough that we were able to give them the entire $200 back.
Would it be convenient, or could we get a representative from each one of those groups to come here and, kick it around and give them an opportunity to tell us what they can or cannot do? And, and it's like that Tai Chi, there's maybe 10, 12 people that go to that. How much are you going to charge them for that? Type of thing.
And they're not going to be using the
And the
kitchen
seniors,
area.
Do they have the lunch there still, or?
As far as I know, and bingo, it's bingo and a lunch every Thursday for several hours.
But they don't use a kitchen area or anything.
No, they bring everything in the back door and just
Right.
the wet area.
Yeah.
So floors and bathrooms are probably
That's right.
But
Get the most. Yes.
here's what I don't understand, because I never, I guess, read this thoroughly enough to understand that under cleaning and damage assessment in our current agreement, after each event, renter must clean the hall, but not the floor, as instructed by city staff.
We were told by
And-
the person that redid the floor that it could get pretty
It was
messed
better
up.
not have to do
Yeah,
it.
we were
And I can
concerned with the
understand
values
that.
on that.
But why are we fully refunding so many of their cleaning deposits? Because we, most of the time, fully refund the cleaning deposit, and yet they're not even cleaning the floor, and we're asking them not to clean the floor. So a portion, and I agree with you about saying, oh, we're going to keep all this cleaning deposit, will make them not want to clean anything. But I think what Rick said
Now,
about
are you
a
talking
portion,
about the for-profit or the non-profit?
either one. They're all asked, I'm sure, not to clean the floor.
Well, I think
Right.
it's more of an insurance of, they
Yeah,
can do
but,
more harm than
Don't
good.
mess it up.
The nonprofits, they only put up $200.
Right,
A
and
year.
so do the others. Cleaning deposit is $200 no matter who you are.
Right.
And we're most of the time refunding that cleaning deposit to them. So a portion of it, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, I think should be non-refundable simply because we're cleaning the floors, plus whatever else we do.
I mean, if the people aren't taking the trash out and putting a couple of rolls of toilet paper in the dispenser and mopping the bathroom floor, then somebody else is doing it, and it must be us, unless we hire somebody. But if
Well,
we're hiring
they are doing
somebody,
that if
then
they're
there's a
complying.
cost
And
there.
our maintenance man does do that, yeah.
So
We're-
I just think
Well,
even the
if you
nonprofits should
go
bear
in-
that cost.
If you have it in the contract, do not clean the floors, you have a $200 cleaning deposit. You go in there and presuming everything is clean, you got to give them back the $200. You don't have a choice.
Yeah. unless
Well,
we
then
have,
maybe there's a problem with the wording.
maybe a security deposit as
Because
opposed
we're-
to a cleaning deposit, and that way if there's any damages.
Make part of it as security and part of, well, actually, no, there is a separate security deposit. There's a deposit of $500 for damages, and then there's a cleaning deposit of $200.
Do we charge the nonprofits the security?
No.
Roger, any idea what it costs us to, on a typical usage, to get it ready for the next user?
Generally, Terry or Armand will go in there to Joe, and they'll spend anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half by each usage, making
So,
sure the bathrooms are there, the paper, checking everything, the chairs, everything there, and they will walk through and inspect the floors for any scrapes or stuff like that or damage. Somebody scraped a bunch of marks across the floor and damaged it, and so it amounts to about an hour to hour and a half every time when they go through, and then they walk around to the outside and pick up anything that's...
But is
So
that after...
50,
I'm sorry.
75,
That's out there almost every usage.
Every use, whether it's a nonprofit or...
Because that's the opportunity to get
That's
back
one
at
person
that
an hour and a
user,
half?
pull it from the cleaning deposit.
A scratch isn't out of the cleaning deposit, though. That's out of the deposit, right?
The 500 is only with regular people using it for
Yeah.
events. That's only taking anything out of if they exhaust the $200 cleaning deposit.
Oh, they exhaust...
There's a lot of it.
They exhaust the
Yeah.
cleaning deposit before they touch this other deposit.
Yes.
I see. Even whether it's a scrape or what it is.
And we had one, I think, last week or the week before, where it resulted in a lot of cleanup, and I think that we kept the majority of the clean deposit.
Well, it was a mess.
It was a mess.
I called Joe on Sunday and said, you got a tornado blew through San Jose Street, garbage all over the place. And I just gave him a heads up when he came in on Monday.
And that was a private party?
Yeah, and they went to about 11:45.
Oh, yeah, you live right there.
Yeah, I heard
You hear the noise.
everything. But anyhow.
I don't think it's reasonable to, as a nonprofit, expect that you can rent a building free of charge. Absolutely zero. I mean, it's one thing to put up money, but to expect to get all of it back and not have to pay anything at all?
Nonprofit just means you don't
And that
make
was,
any money.
and that was the objective of my staff report is that there has to be a reasonable user fee, so that you're saying is, yeah, when you're using it, there's a certain amount of implied wear and tear and usage, and it's reasonable.
I mean, we can cover the electricity and the water and sewer we don't get, we don't get billed for. But the wear and tear on the building somehow has to be covered, and if we at least cover whoever we pay to go in and clean it up, and maybe whatever on top of that we need to for future rehab, because otherwise we're going to get stuck with it all.
But what do you think about that, trying to get them in here and talk to them face to face?
I would
and see what,
I would recommend that you direct, Trish and I will send out a notice to all the users and invite them to the next meeting and to discuss the user fees for the community hall.
there is one thing I didn't really realize that security deposit of only $500. They can do 500 and nothing flat. I mean,
I think there's a clause in the contract that they sign that says if it's above that, they have to pay for it, isn't it? I believe I saw
Yeah.
something along those
okay.
lines.
So, I mean, all they have to do is kick over a toilet or something. It's $500.
Yeah.
We've all seen that. I had it in my bar. Okay. So, Roger, Trish, you're directed to send a letter to all the nonprofit users, see if they'll show up at the next meeting, and we'll put it on the agenda.
Maybe if they hear us debating these different things, they'll come to see it from our point of view, and it'll be easier for them to go along with.
Yeah.
What would it take to like maybe redo the floor and you break it down through how many people usage over so many years may come out to a real small fee where they may not, have any problem with that.
One thing that we did discover today when I was in City Hall, Trish pulled out the contract when the county gave the city money for the renovation, $100,000 I think it was. The county requested that, or demanded, I think more like, that the city not charge San Benito County residents any more than they were charging San Benito City residents. So this recommendation that Michelle made isn't going to fly because it's got a different amount for the inside the county, inside the city, and inside the county. You can only do inside the county and outside the county. You can't have a different amount for inside the city. So that's going to have to be reworked. And
I'll give Michelle a date or staff report.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Moving along. Comments. City Council. Start with you, Jelaine.
Starting with me.
Okay. Yeah, your
Sales.
time's up. Okay.
Let's see. We had a little discussion last time on sales tax. I'd like to continue at some point. And I think Roger and Chuck Geiger, the treasurer, are going to get together on that. Trish, did you have an update on traffic fines and citations? The traffic ticket book, I mean?
Yes, the citation book is down to the printer. They gave me a mock-up that reflects exactly what the resolution said with the new fees. And I'm ready to just move on and have it printed, 1,500 books to give to our deputies.
Wonderful.
Great.
And then we had a consider request by Seniors Council for a representative, and that kind of has fallen through the cracks. Nobody's really, you didn't get any interest on
We
that.
have an application. Oh, Senior Council.
We also have consider CMAP rep. That was my third comment. And we did get one application on that.
I haven't moved any. Yvonne Novak stood up and made comment on the Seniors Council and said she would be getting some information to me, and she didn't get me anything, and from what I understand, she's left our community. I got another packet in the mail today for the meeting that'll occur tomorrow for the Seniors Council, and we'll talk about it next month.
You advertised for CMAP, but not for the seniors? Is that
Not for the seniors. I had come to you and asked if I should do that, and then Yvonne kind of took the ball and went running.
So maybe we should advertise for the Seniors Council too, if there's any interest in the community?
I wasn't sure if what...
or just drop it.
if the board Yvonne was on was the same board that we were asked to try to get a representative for. So I'm going to talk to the executive director and get some clarification on all of that.
Okay.
And other than that, I don't have anything.
Okay.
I just was
I have
trying to
nothing on
clean
that.
up stuff.
Nope.
I just want to commend Roger on the construction of the building. He's been out there every morning and supervising, and it's been flowing pretty good. And I'll let him know that we got all the stuff moved out of the training room so those beds can be moved in for Sunday.
You know, I caught him out there trimming a tree.
Roger, that's a deal breaker.
Is that in his job description?
I don't know, but he had
It's in his
one
job
pole with a
description that he
chainsaw.
not do it, I think.
What department is that?
I told him. The one thing I unfortunately, I guess, did you save me a piece of cake? Did you save me a piece of cake?
You didn't go?
I unfortunately missed Roger's birthday. I want to wish you a happy birthday, Roger.
Happy birthday, I missed it too.
Birthday.
And
Yeah, I announced to them that I'm Jack Benny's age, 39.
39 and old. Right? But yeah, unfortunately, I couldn't make it up. But,
I was out of town.
Okay, that's all I have. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have one
Oh,
more.
city
what
manager
about-
and
Oh, I'm
city
sorry.
attorney.
I keep skipping you guys. I
Oh,
don't want to
and-
hear any more from you.
We didn't want to hear
Roger?
from either of them?
No.
Roger, anything?
Nope. George sends his regards. That's all from us.
Okay. Now to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We're going to
Closed session.
To close
Go
session.
into closed session.
Well, I got to adjourn.
Then we'll adjourn
Okay.
following the closed session.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
Adjourn to closed session.
Oh, yeah. Adjourn to closed session, right. Okay. Losing track.